Star Wars Battlefront 2 is peaking in 2025. 8 years later, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is making a return. Those are words I never thought I'd say. With Star Wars content being really good right now and interest peaking because of Andor, I'm assuming, people are starting to make a return to the Star Wars gaming space. And there's a big return to Battlefront 2 specifically.
Just like the simulation.
EA released Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2017, and it was a rough launch because they decided to fill it up with microtransactions, loot boxes, and the ultimate grind to unlock Darth Vader.
This is outrageous.
But luckily they turned that ship around. And after some consistent free updates up until 2020, the game was honestly looking pretty healthy and was doing quite well. But unfortunately, EA pulled the plug on Battlefront 2. It didn't get any more updates past 2020.
Oh my.
And so this is the best multiplayer Star Wars game we have right now. It is as good as it gets. The game even had a resurgence at the end of 2020 and the start of 2021, with January 2021 having the all-time peak player count for Star Wars Battlefront 2 on Steam. And unfortunately, Star Wars Battlefront 2 doesn't even have crossplay. And if it had that, maybe it would have stayed alive longer than it did. But because Star Wars fans kind of go crazy, they've just done something crazy and brought Star Wars Battlefront 2 back to life in 2025. Over this last weekend, the peak player count was 7,785 on Steam alone. That's not counting any PS5 players, any EA players, any other system. That is just Steam alone. So that number is much higher if you count every system and every platform that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is available on. And honestly, thank God it's come back, because this game is a lot of fun and is the best Star Wars multiplayer experience we have right now. I have been able to play game modes I haven't been able to play in years because the player count has been so low. Galactic Assault, Supremacy, Starfighter Assault, all these wicked game modes that I absolutely loved when the game was getting consistent updates are now back and alive, and you can find games really easily and they fill up. You're hitting max player counts in these matches. And it feels so good to have Star Wars Battlefront 2 make a return. There's even a call out for Battlefront 3 to be made now. There is a huge push from the community for someone, anyone, to make Star Wars Battlefront 3. Because in both iterations of Battlefront, the early 2000s versions and the most recent EA versions, they never ever made it to a third game. It was only ever 2 Battlefront games. And there's been several different iterations and attempts to make Battlefront 3, but none have ever made it past pre-production or the very early stages of development.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
So why is there now such a huge push for Battlefront 3? Well, there's a few reasons. Andor just came out and it's probably the best bit of television I've seen in absolute years. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I highly recommend Andor. It is beautifully written, beautifully shot, beautifully directed. Every episode is amazing. And so a lot of new people are coming into Star Wars most likely because of this show, because it's so good. And they're thinking, well, I want to play a video game that's set in the Star Wars universe. Something a bit more casual, something easy to sink my teeth into. Battlefront 2, easy, done. It's not as niche as something as, say, Star Wars Squadrons or Empire at War. The other reason is EA just announced a new Star Wars game, Star Wars Zero Company, which is actually an XCOM style strategy game being made by BitReactor and Respawn Entertainment. And even when they announced that at Star Wars Celebration in Japan, which was a while ago, people were still commenting, "Where's Battlefront 3? I want Battlefront 3. It's crazy how big the demand is for a new Star Wars multiplayer game on this scale, like Battlefront 3. And honestly, I'm not really holding out too much hope for a Battlefront 3. I don't think it will happen anytime soon if it does happen.
What?
You think about the money that has to be poured into this thing, the time and effort. If they ever do make a Battlefront 3, it won't be anytime soon. And DICE seem to be heavily going into the Battlefield IP because it's a lot cheaper to make. They don't have to give money to anyone because it's their IP. Disney don't own the rights to Battlefield, but they do own the rights to Star Wars. Therefore, DICE and EA have to pay licensing fees to Disney, and that's apparently quite costly.
Money!
And more recently, we've been getting some good Star Wars single player games like Jedi Survivor. Outlaws was okay, but nothing since the Battlefront games has been able to scratch the multiplayer itch for Star Wars fans, which is why they're probably going back to Battlefront 2 in droves right now.
Deploy the garrison!
Plus, there's plenty of mods being made for Battlefront 2. Kyber is a big one that I'm waiting for because that's going to be where a lot of the player base will go to, hopefully, on PC anyway, because they'll be adding server browsers. There's tons of new content in that mod, new heroes, new skins, new weapons, new classes, everything that we probably would have got if development had continued for Battlefront 2 or if we had gotten a Battlefront 3 before now. And there's plenty of other mods being made for the game as well that are keeping the player base alive to a certain extent, but I've never seen anything like this before, where seemingly out of nowhere people are returning to this game specifically. And I do find it odd that we don't really have any news on a Star Wars multiplayer game on the horizon. I think all they have to look at is Helldivers 2 as an example of what they could do with the Star Wars IP in a video game multiplayer format. People already have modded Helldivers 2 into a Star Wars game, but that comes with its own risks. You can get banned and etc. because it is a persistent live service multiplayer game, and obviously the devs don't want you really to mod the game. They want you to use their content, their IP. But I find it weird that the big publishers, instead of looking at something like Helldivers 2, are going, yeah, here's an extraction shooter, here's a hero shooter, here's this, here's that, when there's quite clearly a demand, especially in a sci-fi format, for a multiplayer game like Battlefront or like Helldivers. And with the player count seemingly going up constantly, 3 weeks in a row, this peak player count has risen. Surely someone's going to notice at some point at one of these dev studios, at one of these publishers, and go, actually, we might have to start negotiating with Disney to make a Star Wars multiplayer game like Battlefront or like Helldivers, or something in that vein where multiplayer is the key. It is the focus of a Star Wars game once more. But for now, all we have is Battlefront 2, and honestly, it's a lot of fun. If you've never played Battlefront 2 before, I highly recommend it. There's tons of content in here, and with the player count being so high, it's not that hard to find a match for the game mode you want to play. But let me know in the comments down below whether you guys want to see Battlefront 3. What do you want from a Battlefront 3? Or do you want to see a completely other Star Wars multiplayer game, perhaps in the vein of Helldivers, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, especially if you want to see Battlefront 3. Subscribe for more content like this. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You get extra videos and live streams. And thank you so much for watching this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!